87.
That must have been, yeah, when my sister and I were like making tunnels and stuff.
Oh.
Fifth grade, yeah. You have a good memory for years, Rebecca.
Hava, Nashira, Shira, Alleluia. 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 Hava, Nashira, Shira, Alleluia.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I'm the Reverend John Cullinan, your minister here. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote it will be there when we're done. But for this hour, just let it go. Come into this place with open hearts. Come into this place with a soul that has remembered how to be tender again. Come into this place with a renewed hope for the world. Come into this place ready to build a world we've always been worthy of and have always dreamed of. Come, let us worship together on this beautiful morning. Would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 126. I light 2 candles this morning for all of the joys and all of the sorrows we are holding close to our hearts this week. And now, in honor of those, let us share a moment of silence. Eternal and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. Spirit of life, earth and sea and sky, place of deep longing in our hearts, find your way from silence to voice. Give us strength and courage to speak truth through our lives. For we are creatures of the universe, small but infinite, a momentary body in the sea of life, and also the sea itself. We are gathered bits of energy, and we are ones who gather, a creation and a creator. Let us not hold too tightly to one form and lose the other, for we are not form, but process, ever changing and ever renewing. Help us see that we are neither the beginning nor the end, but something perfectly natural and imperfectly divine. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen.
We will invite the young and young at heart, if you so choose, want to come closer. Y'all are pretty close already. Yeah, come on up for a time for all ages. So, Reverend John, did you know that love is a really big deal in Unitarian Universalism? I bet you did, because you're a minister. Because we just can't stop talking about it.
Love this, side with love that. Justice is what love looks like in public. We weren't the first to say that. That was Dr. Cornel West. but we love its
and how important it was for them. His name was Robert Miller. It turns out that of all the groups he studied, whether religious or not, UUs rank love as a core value more so than others do.
So love really is a big deal for UUs.
I want you to remember that because we are going to come back to that.
Another big deal in Unitarian Universalism is our principles. They're a big part of our covenant with one another.
We know list in English.
And there's this way, which is the same list in Spanish.
You can even see our principles in languages like Arabic and Thai.
And then there's this way, which is shorter language for kids.
And there's this cool principles wheel by Reverends E.
Only 6 principles. 7.
One way to imagine our principles was originally suggested by Rev. It's called a keystone arch. This
is for us to balance between each individual's inherent worth and the needs of the great community of which we are part. But do doorways or arches ever exist all by themselves, just floating in the air?
Not really, right? They're usually stabilized on the ground, a part of a larger building or structure.
So maybe there is a principle that's still missing.
Just like we figured out 35 years ago when we decided that the 7th principle was missing. Maybe the missing principle is the ground upon which the doorway is built.
Maybe it's the whole house of love we're always trying to create for ourselves, each other, and for the world.
Maybe if we add an 8th principle, we will get closer to the beloved community we dream about, where there is no oppression of any kind, where we can say Black Lives Matter, but we don't have to, because the principles already do.
And this is the great thing about a church that relies on our own ability to learn and grow and change.
A church that flows with the spirit of life.
Our principles are alive too. They're a living statement of what matters most, that flows like the Spirit and grows and changes with us. The more we understand ourselves and the web that we are all connected to.
So for our intention table this morning, we have the little arches that you can decorate over there with our principles on the table. So if you so choose, there's markers and crayons, and you can go over there.
Have at it.
Hang out. What?
Have at it.
Have at it, yeah. Thanks, guys. When we walk
Thank you. I want to start this morning by engaging us in a brief spiritual practice. I want us to do a little deep belly breathing this morning to get ourselves centered. So get grounded where you sit. Feel your feet planted firmly on the ground. Close your eyes and put your hands over your belly. And we are going to breathe in for a 10 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale on 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, counting yourselves. Breathe in for 10. Hold for 5. Exhale for 7. In the beginning, this is not a repeat of last week. In the beginning, when God created humanity, God formed a human from the clay of the earth. And then God breathed into its nostrils, giving it God's own spirit. This is a very truncated form of part of the Hebrew creation story. It's a unique story out of all creation stories of ancient times, because most involved the destruction of one thing that already existed to give birth to a new thing. But in the Hebrew creation story, everything comes into being because God speaks it so. And to speak, God must let out God's breath. And in order for humanity to have life, it must be inspired. Inspiration, respiration, aspiration. Our own lives on this planet begin. The breathing cycle begins, and we begin our human life on earth out of the womb, living into probably the greatest paradox of all human living, which is that we are totally dependent on our unbreakable connections to all that is. Life is reconciling the two of those things. So I want you to think a moment about that first breath, where it comes from, what we share in that moment. Because we're breathing the same air together. No single one of us owns it by dint of it entering our lungs and processing through us. Our breath is our one first real connection to everything. That's my own personal God concept at the moment, this understanding of all that is and how I am connected and related to it and how I am carried. I spoke about one of the epiphanies that comes when we walk through the door of a church, be it for the first time or the 51st time or the 101st time. which is this realization that life doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be divided and painful. We can build a new world together. That's one epiphany of the spiritual life. The other, that probably comes sooner than that, is this. There is ourselves for a moment connected to everything. Maybe we're just singing together and we feel that shared breath. It's one of the reasons we sing together in church, to all breathe together in rhythm, to inspire ourselves at the same pace and get in sync. No matter what the experience is, it's a realization that all, and I contain a piece of the all that is within my own self. And maybe I want to get to know that. And so we begin to follow where that spirit, that breath, that moment of awareness, follow it where it might go, down into the depths of our being to see just how far in and how deep and how pervasive it is. Still ourselves, quiet things, so we can just focus on that. Maybe you take up yoga as a means of following that spirit, or you have some kind of a meditation practice, or you just go out on a hike and get out of civilization and out into nature for a little bit, or maybe you sing together. All of these practices involve some deep breathing. Can be very calming and centering. That's why I fall back into it so often when I'm feeling scattered. And maybe that's enough. Maybe those moments are all we need to recenter ourselves, to settle ourselves, to have that moment of point of view shift by shifting the way that we breathe. Maybe that is enough to get a general sense of all that connection, our connection to one another, our connection to all that is. And at its heart, that's basically what spirituality is. Practice, for one thing. An intentional practice that is self-initiated and self-propelled, that leads us to knowing ourselves in relation to some bigger spirit, all that is God, Ruach. But we're human, and we get tripped up by things. And in this equation, we often get tripped up by that in relation to all that is parts. Because it's easy when we're following ourselves down into our own depths to kind of get mired down there, to want to stay with that. I mean, I'm fascinated by my own interior. I could spend all day in my head exploring caverns. But it's easy to get stuck down there, lose sight of the all that is. Maybe what we're discovering in our own depths, we are totally satisfied with, and so we just want to bask in the light of our own self-actualization. Or maybe we are completely dissatisfied with everything we found in our depths, and then we become our own never-ending work in progress, falling into our own navels. Either way, we run the risk of getting the breath caught in our own lungs, of trying to hold the spirit in, losing track of the cycle of self-awareness to all awareness. we run the risk of asphyxiating while trying to live deeper. The deep breath in has to have the slow exhale out. The depth of the self needs to return to that place of awareness of interconnection. You'll hear a lot of people claim that they are spiritual but not religious. And I don't want to knock that, but I'm gonna a little. I get what's happening when people say this. Usually when they're saying I'm not religious, they're saying I'm not into organized religion. And yeah, there's a lot about organized religion in the modern sense, as monolithic as it might seem, that can be kind of off-putting and uninviting, or even downright hostile to our own well-being. So sure, why would we want to be part of that? I'll just stay over here and be spiritual because I need to feel something deeper, but not there. False dichotomy. Spirit and religion is really a both-and proposition. If we're following the flow of the Spirit in and out, we cannot help but come back into community, because that is where we feel our connections the most. So really, we are both spiritual and religious in the sense that religion is about the things that bind us together as a community. We're spiritual and religious to varying degrees in that equation. I may be more centered in the self, spiritual depth seeking at one time, and a little more tentatively connected to the religion end, because I'm really working on something in here, and I might at some point have this huge epiphany of the Spirit, and I want to come back into community, and now I'm feeling a little more religious about it because I have to share what it is I've discovered about myself and the world in the process. Well, spirituality is initiated by the self and pushed forward by the self. It cannot be bounded by the self, because the Spirit, the breath itself, is held in common by each one of us, and paradoxically at the same time is containing all of us at the same time. And it cannot be bounded by the self, because our own interior lives, our own selves, are finite, and our points of view are limited, and we need to hear from others at the time. The breath in needs the breath out, needs the return to the interconnection, to the understanding of how we are bound together. And that first great paradox of human living, that we are both individuals and completely dependent, that paradox won't let us not return. If we're staying centered on the self, we're doing it through great struggle. We're building stronger walls the whole time. Sometimes we need others and need help to pull out of that. For the last decade now, I have been engaged in a practice of spiritual direction. There are people out there in the world who have trained to be spiritual directors, to hear people narrating the stories of their encounters with their spiritual lives and reflect back on them, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what they think we might be ignoring. So for the last decade, I've been mapping my own journey, and I've been telling the story to the same person month after month, year after year, and she reflects back to me what she sees and what she hears. And more often than not, we come back to two basic questions. One, I've heard what John says, but what is the Spirit saying right now in this moment? And 2, who do you think you are to be throwing up barriers to the breath? Because to paraphrase the Gospel of John, the Spirit goes where it wants to go, and we really can't contain it. Our barriers are fake. Our spiritual journey is really an odyssey then. The Spirit goes where it wants to, and it's going to carry us where it takes us in the process. And it is a journey of many years. And we are often blown off course. And there are all sorts of obstacles along the way. Sirens trying to call us into dangerous territory. Cyclops looking to beat us down until we really are nobody. In our case, we come to understand as we flow where the Spirit takes us that the journey is the destination. That as long as we are in the flow, inward and outward, breathe in and breathe out, the breath, the Spirit, that shared thing will change us constantly. We'll never be done because there actually is no bound to the fullness of the self. We are connected at the edges of that. The wind will change us with every tack and jibe through the journey. Our sense of self and our sense of connection changes and grows with each inhalation, with each exhalation, as long as we just remember to keep breathing. And that there is the heart of my own practice. And I suggest it might be at the heart of any of our practices. To stop, to remind ourselves to just keep breathing through it. That's why I invite us into deep breaths, normally at the beginning of each service. To focus on the cycle. To remember that we are breathing the same air together, in the same rhythm, if we can, as we set ourselves up to do that, as we sing together. Remembering the process that the journey of self-discovery does not center just on myself. The questions for reflection are always held up as a mirror to our own work. Am I a barrier to the place where the Spirit will want to go, or am I allowing myself to flow with it? Am I listening to what the Spirit might have to say in those moments of connection, or have I just been sucked in by my own voice? Can I remember if I have lost myself to myself, if I have built barriers? Can I remember how to simply just breathe in, and hold on for a second, and breathe out. And may it be so. As we prepare to return to our everyday lives, it is time to give something of the gifts of this congregation back to the larger community we are part of. It is time for our offering. During the month of August, all cash and undesignated funds that we collect will be given to our friends at Tewa Women United, supporting their work with Native women in Espanola and other counties. The offering will now be accepted. You may drop it in the baskets as they are passed, or in the collection box in the back, or you can use your Givelify app at this moment to make your gift. The button is now active. Thank you for those who let me know. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Just a few announcements before we depart. This Sunday afternoon is the last seed-ball making intergenerational event of the summer. Our seed balls will be distributed to areas in our state that have been affected by fires in order to start bringing back some more life on Earth. So join us for that. Tina can answer your questions about that. She can also answer your questions about our elementary age friendship retreat coming up next weekend. That begins at 1 p.m. on Saturday the 27th and carries over into Sunday morning till about 9:30 as we get ready for service. Registration is open for kids ages 5 to 12. The overnight portion is optional. You can go home to sleep if you need to or if that feels safer. We will be following our COVID safety protocols while we're here in the building on site. There will be video games played on our screen right here, outdoor games, arts and crafts, movie watching, more fun activities. So if you want to start reconnecting with your own friends of elementary age, this is a great opportunity. And then finally, I know I've harped on it for the last 2 weeks, but I'm going to do it again. We're so close. We need one more teacher for that age, grades 3 to 6 span that we're trying to put to 3 to 5? Yeah. 3 to 5, grades 3 to 5. We've got several people have come forward, and we're so thankful for them, but to make sure that we have enough to do a rotation where nobody's too burdened, one more would be great. So if you've been thinking about it and you've been on the fence, have a talk with Tina, and maybe she can convince you to make a choice. And now would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn number 1064. friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.